ladies and gentlemen. Members of the head table, Honorable Raphael G.C. Trotman, Minister of Natural Resources of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mr. Terry Steers Gonzalez, Deputy Chief of Mission, U.S. Embassy in Georgetown, Mr. Suresh Bihari, Chairman of the Bihari Group and Director of GOGA, other directors of GOGA who are present, Mr. Anand Bihari, Mr. Alan Finance, Mr. Philip Finance, John Chin, Andrew Mendez, Stuart Hughes, and Mr. Nigel Hughes. Other members of Parliament who are present this evening, other senior members of the public sector, other members of the diplomatic community that are present, members of the private sector in Guyana, our sponsors, our participants, our exhibitors, members of the CARICOM region who are here to be part of this event, members from South America and North America and other jurisdictions of the world, special invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the opening reception of the first Oil and Gas Conference and Exposition that has been hosted by the Guyana Oil and Gas Association. This event has been hosted under the theme, The Initiation of a Transformative Industry. The theme for this event was chosen with the intention to ensure that we work on increasing the knowledge and improving the understanding of the opportunities that the oil and gas sector holds for the development of this Guyana economy. This is a new business frontier for us as a country, and we at GOGA, as it is stated within our mission, vision, and core values, we want to ensure that we can play our part in providing the mechanism and the forum for the development of this new area of business for all stakeholders who are involved. The primary objective of this event is for us to build business networks that can foster new relations for those who are within the oil and gas sector and for those who have an interest in this new economic pillar of our economy, so that in the long run, our well-being can be improved. This conference and exposition seeks to bring both private and public sector interests to the forum for us to work together. This event is set to evolve as a premier event for information sharing and gathering for our hydrocarbons business development. Ladies and gentlemen, GOGA thanks you for accepting our invitation to be here this evening, and for many of you for being here over the next 2 days to work and ensure that this conference achieves its objective of being an event that plays its part in the holistic development of our newly enhancing oil and gas economy. I will now invite Mr. Suresh Bihari to give some remarks on behalf of the executives and directors of GOGA. Mr. Bihari.
Thank you, Bobby. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's with great pleasure that on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Guyana Oil and Gas Association, that I welcome you to the inaugural Guyana Oil and Gas Conference. I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Carl Greenidge, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Raphael Trotman, Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Cathy Hughes, Minister of Public Telecommunications, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, fellow members of the Board of Directors of GOGA, and for everybody here who is new, I'd just like to point out who the founding members of the board are. We have Mr. Anand Bihari, Mr. Philip Finance, Mr. Nigel Hughes, Mr. Alan Finance, Mr. Stuart Hughes, Mr. John Chin, and Mr. Andrew Mendez. Gentlemen, we didn't try to take the board over with doubles. It's not Noah's Ark. So please forgive the doubles and some of the names, the last names that come. More importantly, we'd like to welcome Mr. Jeff Simons, ExxonMobil, Mr. Ryan Ramjet, Repsol, Dr. Idris Duki, Mid-Atlantic Oil, Colin Kingley, Eco-Atlantic, and Dr. Suresh Narayan, CGX. Without these players being here, there would be no conference today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, about 8 years ago, the Canadian High Commission to Guyana, Dr. David Devine, invited a few businessmen to attend the Newfoundland and Labrador Oil and Gas Industries Association conference. As where they were 25 years ago, it's where we were at that stage. It was an enlightenment to us as the intricacies of the oil and gas business, I do have to admit that initially there was a little bit of intrigue as to what freezing cold weather, icebergs, and Newfoundland screech rum had in common with Guyana. As we are on the equator, the sweltering heat that you have encountered today attests to that, with tropical waters and world-famous El Dorado rum. But David put together a packed agenda that in short space of time exposed us to the inner workings of the industry, from training, education, operational, and regulatory framework. From these visits, the idea of GOGA was born, and with the help of the Canadian High Commission, who provided us with a consultant, who is here, Mr. Rob Strong, who you'll be hearing from on the second day of the conference, this has grown to what you see today. As the oil industry is new to Guyana, we received a lot of questions as to what is the association's purpose and mandate, not to mention a lot of confusion that came along with that, as we've been called a transparency body, an advocacy body. But quite simply, we're an association that represents suppliers to the operators. We seek to build a framework under which there will be ease of access to the operators for our members. This comes in many forms, as you all would know. As the industry is new to Guyana, we have undertaken free public lectures to educate the Guyanese public as to what is coming and how they may go about benefiting, as well as to measure their expectations, as one successful operator does not make an industry. Although it is only a matter of time before more discoveries are found. As Mr. Rob Strong likes to remind the board of GOGA, oil is like a pack of elephants. You never see one elephant traveling alone. They always move in packs. The association has modeled itself drawing from both the Newfoundland and Labrador Oil and Gas Industries Association, the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Chamber. Although the association is still in its infancy, we have generated tremendous interest and applications from membership from both local as well as foreign companies. As with any local association, we have an interest in ensuring that Guyana, and in turn all Guyanese, benefit from the emerging behemoth of an industry. Every consultant, business person, as well as members of the two associations mentioned earlier, keep reiterating to us that we must play a role in ensuring that Guyana does not suffer from Dutch disease, nor do our citizens be left out in the cold. We understand that it will take some time for Guyanese companies and its citizens to gain the technical expertise and experience, but this will come through either time, joint ventures, or simply from hiring expertise. Guyanese have proven through the years to be resourceful and innovative. And this can be seen by companies and individuals who have risen to the top of their field all over the world. I have no reason to believe that this will not be the case yet again. Ladies and gentlemen, I again welcome you to our inaugural conference, and please enjoy the informative program that we have over the next 2 days.
Thank you very much, Suresh. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can assess from Suresh's remarks to you, that the beginning of GOGA, the undertaking of GOGA and the responsibility of GOGA has been through partnerships that we've been working with the government and also working with other private sector stakeholders to ensure that this organization is here today. And building relationships are key to how we move forward in the development of the sector. I will now invite Mr. Terry Steers-Gonzalez to give some remarks. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Vice President and Foreign Affairs Minister Carl Greenidge, Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman, Honorable Ministers of Government and Members of Parliament, Chief Executive Officer of Guyana Oil and Gas Association Bobby Gosai Jr., members of the Board of Directors of the Guyana Oil and Gas Association and Mr. Suresh Bahari, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the private sector, members of the Press Corps, distinguished guests. Back in December at the Guyana Chamber of Commerce and Industry's annual gala, it was my privilege to last share the stage with Minister Trotman. He announced at that event the great advances several industries, gold, diamonds, bauxite, had made in 2016, and committed to put before the government in early 2017 the initial building blocks for a modern oil and gas regime to prepare Guyana for the transformational change that is to come. Though I didn't have the chance to publicly say so that evening, I would like to recognize here the great achievement of the Granger administration to collaborate with Guyanese and international operators and investors alike to create the climate for these advances, while also promoting the principles of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI. The two are not mutually exclusive. My government, moreover, congratulates the Honorable Minister in following through on his commitment to put forward draft legislation soonest on oil and gas and in a manner that includes all stakeholders. The view from the United States on this exciting and new industry for Guyana remains exactly the same as back in December. The private sector, along with Guyana's government and civil society, will play an integral role and share responsibility for shaping the future of the country. As Guyana continues to develop new industries and the regulatory structure and processes that will govern them, your role as citizens, as well as business leaders, will only grow in scope and importance. Guyana is at the cusp of a transformation. Recent estimates confirm that offshore oil deposits may be as large as 1.6 billion recoverable barrels of oil, with additional resources yet to be quantified. Estimates continue to change, each time growing larger. And as these numbers grow, so too the expectations of the Guyanese people. I think we can all agree that legislation and regulations that protect Guyana's interests and promote transparent resource management at all levels are key components to success. The list of important legislation for the industry is vast and spans across the spectrum, from a Petroleum Act to regulations for a sovereign wealth fund, licenses and fees for the new industry, and occupational health and safety standards. Not just the government, but the people of Guyana have an incredible opportunity to define the country's future. That future starts with a carefully calculated strategic plan of action, formed from the collaboration of all stakeholders, that targets job creation, investment, and long-term revenue management. Overall, Guyana's economy has been doing well, and it is projected to continue on this path. The confirmed petroleum reserves guarantee Guyana the revenue to allow it to develop industries and infrastructure and to create a broad-based economy with true value added, which means jobs and prosperity if done right. It also means that Guyana will have the money to fund activities that will allow it to be even greener than it already is. It will be critical to think strategically now about how best to invest those revenues in ways that develop diverse industries, physical infrastructure and citizen security, renewables and energy independence, and quality education and health services. These are among the areas that will create significant job numbers, not local content in the offshore operation. To put it bluntly, revenues can be fleeting, whether coming in or going out. That is why the establishment of a comprehensive sovereign wealth fund is the cornerstone of, or if you will, the crown jewel in any new oil and gas regime. A sovereign wealth fund will provide Guyana with the opportunity to invest in its long-term future. Prudent management of incoming revenues will ensure that outgoing investments by the government in its people do not simply last for as long as oil is pumped out of the ground, but beyond that, through the creation of diverse new industries and projects. Such a sovereign wealth fund should be transparent, independent, inviolable, and nonpartisan. Certainly, Guyana is not and will not be alone in the road ahead. The United States, along with other partners, has and will continue to provide counsel and assistance in support of Guyana's efforts to build industries, not just petroleum, that are transparent, responsive, and accountable to all. Similarly, the participants of this conference, both domestic and international, are here because they recognize Guyana's incredible potential and want to be a part of Guyana's future. We commend and support your decision to invest your talents and voices in Guyana and hope that you will invite more to do the same. It will fall to all of you to continue to advance a vision and implement a plan. There is no amount of assistance that anyone can provide Guyana that can rival domestic political will, an informed private sector, and collaborative citizens. In closing, we encourage you to continue participating in Guyana and in Guyana's present and to keep building a better future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terry Steers Gonzalez. My apologies before. Thank you for those kind words in letting us know that your resounding focus is that as a country, and us Guyanese here, we can pay keen attention to this, that we are not alone in the development of this offshore industry, and to some extent, we also have onshore oil. Thank you for those kind words, and let us know that in the development of this new sector, this new economic frontier that we have here in Guyana, is that as a country, as both public and private sector organization, we must have prudent financial management, and the development of our economy, whether it's from the private sector or the public sector, it must be broad-based and it must be value-added so that we can all benefit in the long run. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium to deliver the feature address, the remarks by the Honorable Raphael G.C. Trotman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fellow colleagues of Cabinet, Vice President Greenwich, should really be at the front, wherever you are. Thank you. My Cabinet colleague, Mrs. Hughes, any other members of Cabinet who are perhaps hidden in this thick crowd, welcome. Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. Suresh Bihari, Executive Member of GOGA, Mr. Terry Steers Gonzalez, Acting Ambassador for the United States of America, Mr. Gosai, Chairperson, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I am pleased to extend a warm and ecstatic welcome to all those gathered here, and especially to everyone who has traveled in from abroad to be part of this conference, being held under the apt theme, the initiation of a transformative industry. I bring you greetings from His Excellency, the President, David Granger, and the Cabinet of Ministers of Government. Many adjectives and superlatives can be used to describe today's happenings, not just what is unfolding at this instant at the Georgetown Marriott, but overall, I'm speaking about what is taking place within Guyana and around the world, following on the announcement of a significant discovery 200 kilometers offshore Guyana's territorial waters. Those words have been historic, transformational, outstanding, transcendental, stupendous, and exciting, all of which I'm sure spring to your minds now and have been used in the past. For me, I believe that the coming oil production is all these and much more. Economic fortunes it portends for Guyana has to be seen against a backdrop of centuries of the enslavement of Africans, decades of indentureship of East Indian, Chinese, Portuguese, and the displacement of perhaps millions of our first people, the Amerindians. Political independence in 1966, republicanism in 1970, and the socio-political and socio-economic and even geopolitical realities and tensions that followed these events have all combined to present to us in the first quarter of this new millennium the crucible of our time. The history of Guyana, Dutch, French, and British, in a pre- and post-independence era, has been one of struggle and antagonism, many of which remain today. Many of these features remain with us today. After all that we have endured, the Guyanese people are owed a better life, and this discovery presents such an opportunity, once, of course, handled delicately and deliberately. 50 years ago, our parents grappled with the anxiety and the reality of what autonomy and independence really meant. Managing an economy, maintaining national security, building social cohesion, and strengthening parliamentary democracy. And today, we, 50 years later, have to grapple with those very complexities, and now with an even bigger challenge. How do we successfully and sustainably manage the resource of petroleum that has been bequeathed to us without imperiling ourselves, our children, our environment, and even our sovereignty? This is why I say that we face the crucible of our time. The Oxford Dictionary describes crucible, and I quote, as a situation in which people or things are severely tested, often interacting to produce something new, end of quote. Elsewhere, philosophers may speak about the dialectics of our time. And so it is against this backdrop that ExxonMobil, with its venture partners Hess and CNOOC, announced to the world that they had made a discovery in our waters. In making this discovery and the formal announcement shortly after, and I pause to say that where the news first broke about this discovery is a story that needs to be told, but certainly not in this setting. Those who know it will laugh. Guyana's destiny as a young state, just 50 years old, was placed on a trajectory that can only be described as extraordinary. Providence perhaps determined that in our 50th year as an independent nation, the gift of a bountiful patrimony would be lifted out of the earth and placed into our hands. And so where we go from here will determine not only the next 50 years, but certainly the next millennia. We require a whole of government, whole of industry, whole of society, and whole of country approach. Partnerships are a sine qua non for success, and these have to be intergovernmental, between government and the operators themselves, between government and civil society, between government and the people of Guyana, and most importantly, between and amongst the people themselves. Certainly, we in government do not claim omnipotence or omniscience. Far be it for us to make such a vaunted claim. We cannot get all that has to get done if we attempt to do it all alone. And so government is seeking partnerships with individuals, with groups, with associations, and even with countries that are prepared to work in the best interest of Guyana and its people. We seek like-minded partners. At the same time, we need to say and to accept that there is a measure to which we can obtain advice and assistance at any given time. So we seek stronger partnerships with the Guyana Oil and Gas Association, with the Private Sector Commission, the African Business Roundtable, the Guyana Manufacturers and Services Association, and the Chambers of Commerce and Industry representatives throughout the three countries of Guyana, and with civil society organizations such as the GHRA, the APA, GOIP, ACDA, the Indian Arrival Committee, the National Two-Shores Council, to name just a few. So what have we been doing for the past 20 months since the discovery? We dubbed 2016 as the year for preparation, and we have dubbed 2017 the year for implementation. We have forged partnerships where none existed before with Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the new Petroleum Producers Discussion Group, and with the Mexican government's Petroleum Institute. And we have strengthened relationships with the United Nations Development Fund, the World Bank, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and the U.S. Department of State. In particular, the Mexican Petroleum Institute will provide 3 white papers for us to strengthen the framework for a stronger industry and regulation. Additionally, we have retained experts and are at present assessing ExxonMobil's and other operators' applications for both production and exploration licenses, respectively. further, we are considering a proposal for one of the world's leading offshore companies to establish a world-class base at Crab Island, Berbice, and are examining the possibility of utilizing some of the available natural gas from the Liza field for energy generation as we transition to renewables. Lastly, we are addressing in advance the viability of a refinery or refineries in Guyana. Insofar as policy and legislative initiatives are concerned, we have completed a raft of legislative and policy drafts and updates, and these include the updating of Guyana's national upstream petroleum sector policy, creating a Guyana national local content policy. We have revised our model production share agreements with assistance from international law firms. We have updated the 1986 petroleum exploration and production legislation and accompanying regulations. We have fashioned a draft sovereign wealth fund bill that has all of the features which Ambassador spoke of and are known as the Santiago Principles. We have drafted petroleum taxation and fiscal rules and regulations. We have completed the drafting and consultation process for the establishment of the Petroleum Commission of Guyana and hope to lay that bill in Parliament within a few weeks. And we are working towards establishing a Petroleum Scientific Institute by 2020 and having a national oil company by 2018. Going forward, the Ministerial Subcommittee of Cabinet that comprises the Ministers of Natural Resources, Finance, Public Infrastructure, Agriculture, Business, Communities, Social Protection, Education, Public Telecommunication, and Citizenship will continue to meet to ensure that government, through its ministries and agencies, will bring its entire weight to push at the wheel, and we propose at this same time to engage the industry and civil society organizations to examine the means through which we can create a more inclusive platform for the exchange of views and ideas. There is much planned for this year and going into 2020, the details of which will be shared as we continue to roll out our outreach program, which we have dubbed Guyana Rising from Potential to Prosperity. All that we do has to be bracketed by a set of considerations that remind us to be cautious as we go about our preparations, recalling that there are those with vested interests in seeing us failing as a nation, and within our society, there are as many cynics as there are optimists. We are reminded as well to be inclusive in our decision making and to be decisive and not to lose the initiative that presents itself now, as the opportunities can evaporate as quickly as do vapors of gas. Whatever we do, we must do together. Let me end by offering congratulations to the members of the Guyana Oil and Gas Association, GOGA, for rising to the occasion and not just holding conferences and lectures, but also engaging Exxon and the operators in commercial activities. By celebrating our blessings and by reminding you to be contemplative about what it will take for us to get to the first barrel of oil in a few years' time, and to ensure that the benefits and growth that we expect to follow are economically and environmentally sustained and sustainable, equitably shared, used to develop our beloved Guyana, and safeguarded from threats that threaten our existence from both within and without. The Government of Guyana is always open to good and useful suggestions and to meaningful support. I therefore wish the organizers and the participants a successful conference. I thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Minister Trotman. Thank you for letting us be aware and continuously be aware within our minds that the oil find is a world-class oil find, and this is Guyana's resource. And most importantly, as a country, we will successfully and sustainably manage this resource. And now the questions must be asked. How do we move into the future with such a resource and an oil find? We have to do it with partners. We have to learn to apply, we have to learn to grow, and we have to learn to develop together. Minister, you indicated that this is the implementation year, but for those in the cooperative oil and gas sector of Guyana, which we now have, this is the kickoff year, and Guyana will develop with inclusiveness for all. The executives of GOGA once again want to recognize the Honorable Carl B. Greenwich, who was here at our launch, Honorable Cathy Hughes, who was here at our launch and still lends support to us. We want to recognize our sponsors, who, without them, we would not be able to have an event of this nature, and we will continue to work diligently over the next 2 days to bring information, build networks, and develop this new frontier of economic development for the oil and gas sector. We also want to thank our exhibitors who are here and want to showcase the products that Guyana is offering and could offer to the oil and gas sector. So on behalf of the executives of GOGA, we thank you all for being here this evening. We engage you to stay with us and have some refreshments and look at the booths that are on display and have some networking activities and build new business relations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and do enjoy.